Okay, hi, Rikus and Toye.
Hi, Christine.
I think we should get started.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. And I'm on live now. And I would just like to apologize to anybody who has struggled to get into the room. There seems to be a problem with our Zoom registrations. It's beyond our control, but please just join us via Facebook. And I'm sorry again. So we're getting started. Welcome to everyone. Please let us know where you are watching us from. My name is Christine Rita Abankwa. I'm the founder of Secure the Bag Africa, Pan-African Success Accelerators, which is a high-performance coaching platform that brings together coaches, speakers, consultants, and entrepreneurs from across the continent. And today we're going to be speaking to Dr. Rikus, Grobler, and Toye Amoson. They are joining us respectively from Namibia and South Africa. As you know, we're going to be talking about turning your ideas in and selling your ideas as a consultant. And welcome Fanis from Valvish in Namibia, Caroline from Uganda, Donald from Botswana, everybody joining us on Facebook. Welcome. Rikus and Toye, I would like you to, somebody says they cannot hear, Daniel cannot hear us. You may want to just check your sound. Okay, so Daniel is all good now. He's joining us from Uganda. Peter is joining us, Charlie rather is joining us from Namibia. Okay, so I would like us to do introductions. Rikus and Toye, I'll start off with Rikus. Could you tell us about yourself, what you do, what you're passionate about, and why?
Hi, Christine. Hi, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity today. Okay, Christine. So I'm from Namibia. I currently live in Windhoek. I was born in a small town in the south of Namibia called Mariental. So grew up there on the in a small town. From there, I went to South Africa to study engineering. I'm an engineer by trade. Came back to Namibia. My first job was at Coca-Cola Namibia as production manager. That's a long time ago. And then I'm obsessed with invention and patents and stuff. So then I did a degree in law to become a patent attorney. And then realized you can only become a patent attorney if you are in South Africa, because you have to attend the school there and be close to the patent office, etc. So I didn't become a patent attorney, just finished the law degree. And then my career sort of evolved into IT project management, started a consulting business. Then I did my MBA. And during the MBA, the penny dropped on innovation and invention and those kind of things. And then I did my PhD in innovation. And yeah, I'm just very passionate about creativity, invention, those kind of things. Currently, I am the head of innovation for the Capricorn group in Namibia. And then I also have a consulting brand called Namibia Innovation Solutions, where I assist people with inventions and innovation strategy and those kind of things. Yeah, and then I practice what I preach as well. I have 3 patent pendings that I registered, working on some more. And I recently published a book on innovation. So yeah, I eat, breathe, and sleep innovation.
Thank you for that, Rikus. And now I would like Mr. Toye Amoson, who is based in South Africa, to give us an introduction to himself, please.
All right, good morning, everybody. Hope you can hear me clearly. My name is Toye Amoson. I'm a Nigerian residing in South Africa. I've been in South Africa since, I think, 1995. I started out as an engineer, chemical engineer, but similar to Rikus, my career led me out of engineering eventually. So I started out working for the likes of Unilever, went into consulting very early. After my consulting experience, I went to business school. I felt I needed to broaden my exposure and my understanding of business. Coming out of business school, I went into banking and started playing roles around strategy, around business development. And during that period, I started getting an interest in technology. After coming out of banking, I found banking very, very interesting. I joined SAB Miller in a role that had to do with business development, market execution, as well as strategy. About 8 years ago, I decided to go on my own. Currently, I am the founder of Consumatech Solutions. What I was able to do with Consumatech was take the passion for technology that I had developed over the years and combine it with an interest in problem solving using engineering principles. Currently, what we do at Consumatech, we develop technology solutions that target specifically African challenges, challenges that have to do with problems that Africans face on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Toye. We're going to start off with Rikus's presentation, which is all about innovation and turning your ideas into action. So, Rikus, the floor is yours.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you very much, Christine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shut off my video, maybe for more space for the sound and the presentation. And then if anybody has questions, I believe you can post it in the chat box, or there will be a Q&A afterwards as well. So I'm going to finish my presentation, and I think then Toye, and then we'll address the questions. Okay, so let me just quickly get things going here. Okay. Okay. Christine, can you see my screen? Is everybody in order there?
Everything is in order.
Okay, great stuff. So what I quickly want to touch on today, like I said, I just want to do sort of a high level, not going into too much detail today. But I want to discuss the value and importance of ideas. Where do ideas come from? Talk about how to generate good ideas. Then the talking versus doing part of it. And then also the different routes an idea can take. Not every idea ends up as a business. Once you have the idea, what do you do to get traction and keeping the momentum? And then lastly, if you are in this game, you must not be afraid of failure. So those are the topics that I quickly want to touch on. So I truly believe that ideas are the engines of progress. And this quote, it's in a book, Ideas Are Free by Alan Robinson and Dean Schroeder. It really, I think it's my motto for organizations. It's what I practice and what I preach. So if you are interested in these kind of things, I can really recommend that book. I actually met Dr. Alan Robinson. He's from the States, and they specialize in idea-driven organizations where they just tap into the ideas of people. Okay, so I always like to kick off with a good story about how a small idea can make a big difference. It actually happened I think in a Unilever factory. It's a true story. You can go and check it on the internet. I know not if something is on the internet, it's not necessarily that it's true. But so what happened was there was a toothpaste factory, and when they packed the toothpaste, sometimes they didn't insert the tube into the box. and then the empty box would ship, and then when it gets to the pharmacy or the retail outlet or whatever, there was an empty box with no toothpaste inside, which means that then it's obviously now brand reputation and blah blah blah. And then so they wanted to solve this problem, so they got in a team of engineers, had lots of meetings, and then eventually they came up with a solution to say, okay, so what they're going to do is they're going to put a very sensitive scale in the conveyor belt, and then every box that moves over the scale, it will be weighed, and then obviously if the tube is not inside, the box will be too light, and then the alarm will go off and the line will stop. So 6 months and a huge project budget later, this this sensitive scale was inserted in the conveyor system, and then every time the empty box moved over, an alarm went off, the line stopped, and somebody had to come and take the box off. Great, no more empty boxes shipping to customers and to the retail outlets. So 3 months goes by, everybody's happy, and then the factory manager realizes, but he's not hearing the alarm anymore. So he walks down to the factory floor to see what's going on, why is it not working anymore, and there he finds a very cheap desk fan put about 3 meters from the conveyor belt, and he says, what's going on here? And the operator said, you know what, I got tired of standing up and resetting the line every time, so I just put the fan here and it just blows off the empty boxes. So the moral of the story is they didn't have to go the high-tech route. This very simple idea with a desk fan actually solved the problem, and it was from the operator on the ground. So I really like telling this story just to say that, or just to show that how sometimes a simple idea can make a big difference. Okay, so the value and importance of ideas. So everything starts with an idea. Every business, every product you've touched today, the coffee you drink, your computer, your whatever, it started with an idea that somebody has. So ideas are truly the beginning of all things in terms of running a business or making a product or offering a service or whatever. It all starts with an idea. And so if ideas are so important, obviously the next question becomes, so where do good ideas come from? Lots of people say, you know what, I'm not creative, I don't have good ideas. So you can go and search for the work of Dr. Edward de Bono. He's the authority on thinking and creativity and those kind of things. He coined the term lateral thinking. He specializes, he's got like 7 degrees in medical degrees. So this guy knows what he's talking about. And he said that everybody has the potential to be creative. People just think in different manners. So Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will spend its whole life thinking it's stupid. So it means that everybody's approach is different. Everybody has different thinking styles. An engineer will think different than a poet. So it doesn't make you less creative. It just means you have another way of getting to your ideas. So I always say you don't have to be the most creative person in the room. You don't have to be Steve Jobs or whatever. Anybody can create good ideas. You can follow a process to generate ideas. There's lots of techniques and different methodologies that actually forces you to generate ideas. Like I said, I don't want to go into the detail today of all these methodologies, but there's proven systems, and it's different for everybody. Some people prefer mind maps, other people prefer just using a random word from a dictionary and linking ideas to that. So there's different ways and means of doing this. And then also very important, ideas evolve. So your first idea is not always necessarily your best idea, but as you start discussing it and building the idea, you'll run into other problems, etc., and then the idea will evolve. So if your first idea is not the greatest idea, it's fine. Just start rolling with it. It will evolve. It will change. That's how ideas grow. Okay. So and then the best tip I can give you in terms of finding good ideas if you want to start a business or whatever. So without following any methodologies, etc., the best tip I can give you is you find ideas by finding a problem to solve. So every business that exists solves a problem for somebody. So start with if you find a good problem, you find a good idea. So look at where are frustrations, where things not working as it should. You'll usually know where things are getting stuck, if I can put it like that, in your business, or what you just see in your everyday life or in your hobby or whatever. So where things are not working as it should, usually that's where good ideas lie around to wanting to be found. And then the other tip I can give you, and I've seen this in my personal life and in the organizations I've consulted for and worked for, 2 heads are really better than one. Without touching on the issues of intellectual property, not everybody want to go and share their idea immediately, obviously with the concern of the idea being copied or whatever. But in a work environment, or if you have a trusted friend or advisor or a colleague or whatever, people, your perspectives are bound. So if you discuss your idea with somebody else, there's another perspective. Maybe the person asks questions you didn't think of. So I really advise you to find a problem to solve, and then once you get an idea, discuss it with somebody you trust, and then just get another perspective. It really helps. So in the case of idea management, 2 heads are truly better than one. I always went to my dad. He was a very practical man. So if I had a good idea or something I wanted to do, I always discussed it with my dad. Okay, so that's the one tip I can give you in terms of finding good ideas. And then the other tip I want to give you is sorry, I just want to go into finding a good problem to solve. I have a couple of examples I want to show you. So just bear with me. Some of them I actually find quite funny. So the problem to be solved here was this person was losing his cup at work. You know how it works in a work environment. You take the first cup and then it's somebody else's. So yeah, why not put a plug with a key in your cup? If you finish using it, you can pull out the plug, and then it's another person cannot steal your cup and use it. Okay, so that to me was quite brilliant. Secondly, so stealing your lunch. So somebody actually went and invented a plastic bag with mold printed on it. So when you put the sandwich in the bag, it actually looks if there's mold growing on the sandwich, and nobody's will steal your lunch anymore. This to me was extremely funny. I really think this was very creative. So, and then also moving on to larger businesses, Dropbox solving a big problem for people in terms of online storage. So like I said, it starts with solving somebody's problem. So we all have more and more data and stuff we need to store, and Dropbox was the first to, actually don't think they were the first, there were others that tried it before them, but anyway, they solve a big problem. Okay, these guys solve a problem. Not everybody has a point of sale machine or whatever, but everybody has a cell phone or a tablet. So why not turn that into a card machine, and voila, people can pay without you having to have a point of sale machine. So all of these pictures I've shown you are examples of a problem that was solved. And then also, obviously, it doesn't always have to be an electronic solution or an electronic or a digital product. Even something as simple as washing your dog. I have dogs. I don't know if you've tried to wash a dog, but this to me was also brilliant. It can be a physical product as well. Okay, so that was just a couple of examples of businesses that found problems to solve. And then also, instead of finding a good problem to solve, the other tip I can give you to find good ideas is to follow your curiosity. So I've read and studied a lot about creative thinking and how the mind works and improving your creativity. And it's true that people that are more curious are more creative. There's studies that have found that have researched this. So if you are interested in something, read up on it, ask questions, speak to subject matter experts. So good ideas come from following your curiosity. So if it's in your hobby or in your workplace, if there's a certain piece of technology that you're interested in, whatever it may be, follow your curiosity. It will lead to good ideas and it will lead to good questions. Okay. And then if you don't believe me, so in terms of your curiosity and asking questions, so the reasoning of this advice I'm giving to you is, so creativity begins with asking questions, and innovation happens when you implement answers. So the more questions you ask about something, the better answers you will start to generate. Okay. So if you don't ask any questions, there won't be any answers. So the important thing is to never stop questioning. And with regards to product or service development in your work environment or in your business or as an entrepreneur, the most important thing you can do to kick off innovation is ask questions. And I'm going to give this is also a well-known technique. But I'm just going to give you a few examples of the kind of questions you will ask, and then you'll realize that these questions lead to answers, and then another and more questions, and eventually your idea will start to shape. So if you have a certain problem, state it as a question, and then your brain will start working on a solution. So the kind of questions you can start to ask: why are we doing it this way? What if we tried A, B, or C? How can we fill in the blanks, do it in a different manner? What is another way of looking at this? What do we not know here? Why can we do this? Why not? What would happen if we try this? How do we know? So these are the kind of things that are the questions that you can actually apply to start unraveling a problem and to get to a solution. So keep on asking questions and finding solutions, and you will see that it will evolve into you finding a good opportunity or a solution to the issue or the problem you are experiencing. Sorry, there's another one. Have you thought of another way this could be done? Okay. And then lastly, if you don't believe me, this is a statement from the world's most well-known genius, who said that he was not very clever or gifted. He was only very, very curious. Okay. And then the bottom line is also, curiosity will definitely not kill you. Follow your curiosity, and you will see it leads to great ideas and solutions to your problems. Okay, so the next thing, so just to summarize quickly, so ideas, find good problems to solve, or find a problem to solve, and then also follow your curiosity. Those are the key messages with regards to creating good ideas. Okay, and then remember, not all ideas start off as winners. Ideas evolve, and discuss your ideas with a trusted partner or advisor to get a second opinion or more opinions or another perspectives on your idea. Okay, great. So then I also want to talk about idea lovers versus idea makers. So there are people that have lots of ideas, but they never apply it. And if you don't apply it, you will not get the value of it. So I'm one of those persons who I like finding the solution and coming up with the idea, and when the implementation starts, it gets boring. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's just how I'm wired. But you have to be cognizant of if you are like me, who it's just about the ideas and not doing something about it. So I come to a stage where I said, okay, but I have all these great ideas, but I'm not getting any value of it. And then I don't want to say force myself. I'll show you later in the presentation. I'll quickly touch on how to get traction and how to get things going. So if you're an ideas person, it's important to make sure that you take action as well. And if you're not so I always like to say I'm a good starter but not a good finisher. But you can surround yourself with people who's good finishers and not necessarily good starters. So that's one way of addressing that. And then I'll also touch on, in your personal capacity, how you can actually start getting traction on ideas. So I wanna give a warning to say that be aware of, like myself, I fell into that trap of falling in love with generating the idea. Wow, this business is going to be great. Wow, this product is great, and nothing came of it. And then you just move on to the next one, and then the next one, because it's exciting to come up with these things. But if you don't do anything about it, it's worthless. So be careful of the trap of having too many ideas and not taking action on them. And some ideas work and some not. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't take action. Okay. Then, so I also want to touch on the different routes an idea can take. And like I said, I just want to, it's high level. I don't want to go into too much detail. So not every idea you have or a problem you want to solve has to become a business. I'm comfortable with the fact that not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. I admire entrepreneurs, and the world always celebrates successful entrepreneurs, but not everybody can be an entrepreneur. Not everybody is willing to take the risk or want to live that lifestyle. So that's fine. It doesn't mean that your idea will go to waste. So entrepreneurs are a special breed. Like I said, everybody's not comfortable with the risk, but that doesn't mean you cannot create value from an idea. So I just want to show you a couple of other options that you can follow. In terms of if you think of a very good problem to solve, or if you think of a very good invention, it doesn't necessarily have to end up in a business and a shares listing. Okay, so sometimes you just want to make a change for the better, whether it's at home, in your sport club, in your office, or whatever. Sometimes you just see that something is not working and you just want to change it. That's okay. Not every idea has to make $1 million. So I love talking to these DIY home type of inventors. If you see how these guys make their lives easier, sometimes actually more difficult, but you don't necessarily have to start a business. Sometimes it's just a simple thing that you can change that makes your life easier. Okay, so not every idea has to be this big fancy thing. It can be a simple thing, that how you wash your car, or save space in your office, or at home, or make something work more efficient, or whatever. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you don't have to. You can be an intrapreneur. So the difference between an intrapreneur and an entrepreneur is intrapreneur are employed within an organization and they start businesses from there. So you mean that what it means is, or the key differences just very quickly. So with an entrepreneur, you have more freedom because you don't have you're not in an organizational structure, but you take all the risk and you are your own boss. With regards to an intrapreneur, you have less freedom because you're still in a corporate environment. The company shares the risk with you if you start a new product or a new business, and obviously you are employed. So you can still be an entrepreneur with less risk, but within an organization. And I've seen as organizations struggle to innovate, I see this model becoming more and more popular, where there are people who have this entrepreneurial flair in organizations, and where the organizations utilize these people to innovate and start new things. So I also just want to mention that it requires a very high level of maturity for an organization to follow this and to do it like this. It can be done, and I've seen it done, but you must remember, don't go to your boss and say, hey, I'm now an entrepreneur, I'm going to start a business within the business. It requires a very high level of organizational maturity to follow this and to make use of entrepreneurs within the organizational environment. Okay, then obviously you can patent your product. So if you have an invention and it's not been, there's different rules of what you can patent, and then you can actually sell the patent or license it, or whatever the case may be. I want to warn that if you go this route, patenting is a complex process. Number one, so you will have to make use of the services of a patent attorney, which is expensive. But if you really have a winner, if you really find a product that's worth it and that's not been seen before, it's maybe the best option to go this route. I have a picture of the patent drawing of a piece of the Velcro. You know, these sticky things that you attach stuff to each other. So I think it was a Swiss, and he went walking with his dog, and then the seeds that got stuck in the dog's hair, he actually went and put it under the microscope, and that's how he got the idea for Velcro. So I have a picture of the patent drawing for the patent for Velcro, just for some inspiration if you find something like that and you do want to go the patent route. And then you can license your idea. So what you can do here is you don't have to take out a full patent. You can take out a provisional patent application, a PPA, just very high level. And I just want to put a disclaimer here. This is not formal legal advice, but you can actually do it online yourself. It's not that complex, and then you have a year protection for your idea. And what you can do then is you can actually go and license your ideas to organizations so they take your idea, they make it work, make the product or offer the service or create the app or whatever it may be, and then you get paid royalties from the sales of that product or whatever product or service that you invented. So this is a cheaper route than patenting. It's not that complex, and like I said, it's not as expensive as registering a patent. So the licensing is I can't remember, but it's like I think 60 US to at the US patent office to file a provisional patent application. Okay, so that's another route your idea can take. And then also I didn't include it in the presentation, but I thought of it this morning when I went through my notes. There's also lots of websites that actually wants ideas, product ideas, whatever, and then they pay you for if you submit an idea and they actually take the idea and make a product and generate a profit from it. So there's lots of websites that actually has this offering where they buy ideas from you. So that's another thing you can do with your idea. You can go to this website and log it. They usually have very specific categories like, say, kitchenware or pet products or toys or something. So if you have a good idea like that, you can go and search online for one of these places where you can actually submit your idea and sell your idea to those organizations. Okay. Then I quickly want to touch of keeping traction and keeping the momentum. So once you have this great idea that you found through solving a problem or following your curiosity or discussing it with a friend, it's all about taking that first step. So I always use running a marathon as an analogy. So you don't get up and go and run a marathon. If you decide to run a marathon, you start slowly. You get up the first time you just go for a walk for a kilometer for a week. Then the next week you push it to 1.5 kilometers and you start jogging a minute and walking a minute. And then you start getting more fit, and then you start reading up on it, and you start to talk to other experts, and then you realize, but your diet may have an influence on running a marathon. There's other exercises you have to do to strengthen certain muscles, etc. Now you're becoming an expert, and then 6 months to a year later you run your first marathon. But it all starts with getting up that first morning and walking that first kilometer. So it's the same with ideas and businesses. You have to take that first step, and it's also important to, in my view, you have to start small. So don't just, what I'm trying to say is that figure out what's the next thing to do. You don't have to design the entire product with the first go. So just write the spec for this first step, or just make that first phone call to touch base with a possible designer who can design the product, or whatever the case may be. Just break it down into small steps, and don't be overwhelmed by the size of the marathon. Just focus on the kilometer you have to walk today. Also very important, is a mistake I made a lot, is you want to keep busy and you want to keep doing. When I realized I'm more an ideas person than a doer. You do things just to stay busy, but you have to figure out what's the right next step to take. Jim Collins, the writer of From Good to Great, has a saying to say, first fire bullets, then cannonballs, meaning you take small risks. Cannonballs are expensive, and if in the old days, in the Pirates of the Caribbean days, if you shoot a cannonball, it's a lot of cost involved. So you first fire the bullets to see what happens before you take out the cannonball. So what that means is just try small things before you put all your eggs in one basket. So don't go and spend a whole lot of money to take out a patent. The first step would be to just do a Google patent search yourself and go and check. Maybe you find something that's exactly what you have in mind, and then you don't have to pay a lot of money to a patent attorney, because you see that actually the same product is already developed, etc. Okay. And then the other important thing is that I can tell you, if you're an ideas person, you want to get value from your ideas, whichever route your idea goes, you will have to sell it to someone. I spoke about all the different options, whether you want to just fix something, whether it's a business, whether it's at work, whether you want to patent it. So the thing is, whether you're pitching your ideas to your boss or coworker, or to a possible investor in your business, or to your business partner, or to a bank to get a loan, or to a customer, somewhere, it doesn't matter what route your idea takes. you will have to sell it to someone. So I know there's some people that really don't like selling, but there's different ways and means of doing it. So the product ideas I patented that I try to sell. You just draw up a one-pager sell sheet highlighting the benefits of the product and a picture or whatever, and you email it to someone. I don't even have to talk to them on the phone. So there's different range of means, but you have to you have to become comfortable and proficient in selling. And there's different ways of doing it. Doesn't mean you're going to have to necessarily go and knock on people's doors. Right. So just want to end off with I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the business and people in organizations. So just want to end with some quick advice in terms of, if you're an entrepreneur, what are these steps that you have to do to getting traction, keeping the momentum. So the first thing is, with entrepreneurship, first determine if there's a market for your idea. This is extremely important. Don't go and blow a lot of money. First, find out if there's interest in your product, if there is a market for your idea. So that is key. And like I said, I'm not going into the detail of how this can be done. Secondly, start with a minimum viable product. Make it this is basically based on the lean startup from Eric Rice. But if you do want to go and read the book, but so don't go all bells and whistles the first time. Just do the first product that solves the customer's problem, and then from there you test the market, you get feedback from what works, what doesn't, you improve it, and you just continue with that cycle. Okay, so the lean startup really explains this principle very well. If you're an entrepreneur, my advice to you would be, the first thing you can do is first determine who has the most to gain from your idea. Is it a specific department, your manager? Is it the customer? Is it a specific process? And then look who's the person behind that. And then in a corporate environment, I've seen it so many times. Ideas gets implemented if people back your ideas. That's just how the politics and the stuff in an organization works. So you have to gain support for your idea, one backer at a time, I always say. So whether it's your boss or a co-worker or the head of department or whatever, you have to sell the benefits of your idea in the organization. So if you want to make something happen in your organization, gain support for your idea, one backer at a time. That is the best advice I can give you if you want to apply your ideas in your corporate environment. Right, and then I want to end off with don't be afraid of failure. Not all ideas make it, and you're in good company. So some of the best, most well-known innovative companies in the world had big failures. Google Glass, this was a great idea from Google, and it just sort of died a slow death, and you don't hear anything of it anymore. So that was a big failure from Google's side. Microsoft Bob, it was a virtual assistant that Microsoft tried. It didn't work at all. So yeah, these days I know this was in 1995, but I don't think many people know about Microsoft Bob. So that was also a big failure on Microsoft's side. And then the Apple Newton, in those days it was called a PDA, a personal digital assistant. Okay, so that didn't take off. I must now say, this was in the pre-Jobs era when Apple got rid of Jobs and when they turned out these kind of products. But yes, even probably the most innovative company in the world, Apple, made mistakes. So don't worry if you make mistakes, you're in good company. I really like this quote. So on Michael Jordan, just to say that he became successful by all the mistakes he made. And you can see the stats there in the quote. I failed over and over again, and that's why I succeed. So if you make a mistake, if your product or your product idea doesn't work out, that's fine. Just move on, try the next one. It's a learning curve. Don't give up with one failure. Right, and then like I said, I just want to end off with this quote. I hope I've given you some inspiration if you have ideas. But an idea is nothing if you don't take it further. So you have to take that first step and then nurture, develop, engineer, tinker, champion, test, implement. So ideas have no value until they are implemented. Okay, so that to me is key. And then lastly, my contact details. Christina, I assume you will share it with the participants. For those of you who want to contact me, you're more than welcome. I love talking about ideas or giving advice on what route people can go with the ideas. It's really my passion in life. We can sign a non-disclosure agreement if you're concerned that I will steal your idea. You have to be concerned about it, meaning not me, but if you have a really good idea, intellectual property and those things, like I said, I don't want to go into the detail today. Okay, cool. So that's me. I'm going to start my video again, Christine, just to find out what's happening next. The questions will be afterwards. I went a bit over my time. Sorry about that. But thank you very much. And then I think it's over to Christine now again.
Thank you so much, Rikus. That was really interesting. And I feel that there are some sections that actually need their own presentation. I'm sure everyone will agree with me on that. I love what you said about curiosity and stating your problem as a question. I think that's a very good takeaway. I also really liked the diagram of the thinker, the bronze structure of the thinker. It was a really good analogy for how a lot of times we get caught up in just thinking versus getting up and starting. And I also liked the differentiation between a corporate entrepreneur, the intrapreneur, versus the entrepreneur that we know. And another point that stuck out was surrounding yourself with people with complementary skills. So if you're somebody who loves to get started, you do need partners who are more operational and want to, you know, take or follow the process to bring this idea to life. There's something that I wanted you to touch on. I don't know which slide it was, but it's the one where you were talking about testing the market and the minimal viable product.
Yes.
If you could just elaborate on that a little bit before I get to the questions. Testing, I think is it this slide or the one before?
Yes.
Yes.
So like I said, this philosophy, well, I don't want to call it a philosophy, but this way of doing things come from Eric Rice, the Lean Startup, and it means that you build a prototype, you can show how it works on the internet and use social media, whatever, to see if there's interest in your product before actually. I mean, I'm talking now like a virtual 3D. You can use Autodesk or one of these design programs. This is just one example I'm giving, and then post that before you actually go and design it and manufacture it, because that is expensive. So first do just a virtual mock-up and then put it out there to see what people comment, etc. If it's an electronic product, sometimes it's I mean, if I can give a good example, the version of Facebook or WhatsApp we use today, they continually evolve, but the first version didn't have everything, so they just put, you can just say do one or two or three things and people start using it, and then you add on the next one and add on the next one, because if you add all 20 features, or if you wait to add all 20 features the first time, it will take you 3 years in development. So put in the first 3 key features that's the sells the most benefit of your product, and then see how the market reacts to that, and then add the next feature, and then add the next feature. Don't try and put all 20 in first time. It will take you 3 years, and the market these days, it changes so fast. People's needs and requirements, it changes so fast these days. So don't spend time a year developing something. Get the first version out there, see how the market reacts, what are the feedback you get in terms of this is working, this is not working, we would really like this extra, blah, blah, blah. So the biggest advice, if you're really interested in this, go and read the Lean Startup from Eric Rice. That he coined this term of an MVP, and he's brainchild. And with the risk an entrepreneur take these days, this approach just makes much more sense than going big, and then you're not certain of success.
Thank you, Rikus. I think it's a brilliant concept, and it can be applied to people who also sell intellectual services like consultants and the like, because you need to innovate, but at the same time, the concept of the minimal viable product, what can you start off with?
Yes.
Because I think a lot of times we get lost in trying to have everything. I need every single resource before I start. And also determining if there's a market. If you're talking to a consultant, for instance, what advice could you give in terms of determining the market?
Yes. So you must look at firstly where the demand is, and that would be what is your customer profile, and you must actually go and create a customer profile. So my customer is a middle manager in an organization who's struggling with HR matters for retrenchment or whatever, and define it, and almost give that person a name to say this is Bob or Sue or whatever, and then how will I go and talk to this person to tell them what I can do to solve this problem? So look at so what's the biggest, most challenging problem that your possible customers have, and then sell the main benefit. Don't, like you said, rightfully said, now don't go and sell 100 benefits. Just say, you know what, Sue, I am a retrenchment. I'm just spitballing here now with an example. I hope it's not too bad one. But I am an expert in the proceedings of retrenching people and how to do it in the right manner so that both parties walk out are treated fair. So I see with the current economic environment, you have to retrench a lot of people. I can help you to do A, meaning see that it's fair, see that the employees that lose their work are treated fairly, and you don't burn any bridges, whatever. And sell that key benefit. Don't say, but I can do this, and then I can check the pension fund, and then I can make a dentist appointment for them to whatever, and just say, this is the problem I'm solving, and start there. And then usually that evolves into other opportunities, depending on what your expertise are, obviously. But start small with solving that one specific problem. Identify that specific problem, and then give your possible client a name and a persona to say that it's a middle manager, this in mining organizations that's going through tough business time and have to retrench people or whatever the case may be. So define it very specifically, and then pitch how you solve that one specific problem. Right.
And very quickly, Rikus, how would you test feedback? What does that entail?
Okay, that is a very good question. So these days, it's with social media and technology, it's become quite easier. In the old days, you have to go and hand out flyers and those kind of things. So create a little website. This is just one example. Create a website where you feature your product, advertise it on Facebook and other mediums, and then have sort of a subscriber list where people can pre-order the product. So say, for instance, you have a new product for cleaning your dog or whatever. So go and advertise that on the internet, show a picture of the product, and then would you be interested? And then obviously advertise it on Facebook. Are you tired of your dog running away while washing it? I don't know if you remember in the presentation, I showed that thing that they designed for washing your dog. And then people will say, wow, that's great. Put me up for 2, or when will it be available, or whatever. So that's a quick way. You don't even have to have manufactured the product. You can just have a 3D mock-up of it, or a little. These days you can have videos made on the internet. Quite of some of the products I designed. I hired people on Fiverr is a website name. I can't create a video, so I said, this is the product, this is what you do. Please create a little introductory video to show how the product works, and then you can put that on your website and say that this is what it will cost, and then see how people react. So that's a cheap and easy way. There's other ways. It obviously depends on the product as well. In terms of consulting services, maybe write out a case study of how your services was applied and the difference it made, and then have people subscribe to your email list or your blog or whatever. And then as your subscribers grow, you will see is there interest for this specific service or not. So it starts with, to summarize, sorry, I'm wasting time now, but just don't go all in, spend all the money. Just figure out what's the best way to test this product. If it means going to a shopping mall and handing out samples, that's cheap to make, then that's your start. If it's a website just with a little prototype of a product to see how people react to it, that's that start. But don't go and manufacture and create, hire staff and expensive office and whatever, and then the interest for your product is not there.
Thank you so much for that, Rikus. I do see a few questions coming up. I'd just like to remind us that we do have a question and answer session, a joint question and answer session Right now, I would like to give the floor to Toye, who will be talking about consultancy and selling your ideas as a consultant. So we've been talking about ideas, formulating our ideas, testing our ideas, finding the market for our ideas. Now, how do we sell them as consultants, and how do we solve problems? Because that's what consultants are really hired to do. And we will definitely take all the questions that are coming in afterwards. Toye.
All right. Can you hear me, Christine?
I can hear you, yes, and I see you are sharing.
Okay, great stuff. So thank you. Today I'm going to spend some time just talking about how to sell your ideas as a consultant. The outline for the day, we're going to talk about the art of selling ideas. I'm going to share with you a few techniques that I have learned over the years about how to sell my ideas successfully as a consultant. And I will end up with what is an introduction to a toolkit or a set of tools that you can use to generate sellable ideas. And I guess in the question and answer session, we might be able to flesh out a little more about some of those tools, depending on the questions that do come in. All right, so selling ideas is like solving a puzzle. I don't know how many people have an interest in puzzles. There are mazes, there are jigsaw puzzles, there are crossword puzzles. In any puzzle that you're trying to solve, there are different techniques that people use. Specifically, I don't know if anyone's ever taken an interest in solving maze-like puzzles. There's a technique called breadcrumbs. With breadcrumbs, you literally leave breadcrumbs as you walk along the maze. And what happens is you're able to trace your steps, because if you see breadcrumbs, you know that you've been there already. Another technique is called the right-hand rule, and it's really simple. You turn right every time you come to a corner. The third one, which is a string, very similar to breadcrumbs. You tie a string to the starting point, you start walking. You can obviously see if you've come across a certain point before. And then the last one is for those who obviously have the time, the random walk technique. So you figure it out as you go. You may end up walking around in circles, but effectively, these are all different techniques that are used to solve problems. As a consultant, your role is to get your clients through the puzzle that they have to solve and get them to the other side. And effectively, the art of selling ideas as a consultant is how you guide your clients from wherever they are to a desired end state. And your objective is to figure out which is the right technique, which is the winning idea that will help them get to the other side. And there are a couple of techniques that I have been exposed to over the years, which have really helped me to be successful at selling my ideas as a consultant. And I'd like to share 4 of them with you today. There are others, but I think for the sake of time, I think these 4 have definitely been some of the most impactful and have definitely led to some of the greatest successes. The first technique, and what I really like, is that Rikus spoke quite a bit about some of these things and some of these techniques when he was going through his presentation. But the very first one is about understanding the problem. When you're a junior consultant, I was a junior consultant in the early 2000s, and we would go into clients, and after listening to what they said the problem was, I had ideas. I thought, oh, I think I know what the solution to this problem is. I know what they can do, and we can solve this problem. Very quickly, I learned from some of the more experienced consultants, from some of the senior partners. I learned very quickly that honestly, you don't shoot from the hip when you're trying to solve ideas or you're trying to sell ideas as a consultant. One key thing that you have to do is you have to do your research. You have to actually understand what's happening in the business. You need to understand their context. You need to understand what's happening with your client. Rikus used the example of a manager that potentially has HR issues. What are the issues? What's the problem? Is it that they have to retrench? Is the retrenchment because of economic challenges? Is the retrenchment because of internal issues? Is the business being sold? Is it performance issues? You need to understand what is actually happening. You need to know your client. You need to understand what is their context within their industry, what is their context relative to their suppliers, what is their context relative to staff. Is it a problem of business processes? The journey of understanding the problem that you are solving for is very critical to making sure that the ideas that you come up with are sellable. Very often, the difference between what makes a successful consultant who can sell their ideas and one that is unsuccessful is the level of understanding that they have of the problem. One of the best ways to then make sure that you actually have understood what the problem is to be able to identify and quantify what those pain points are. Be able to say that if this is the problem, if this is what the problem is, I am able to define it as X. I'm able to define it as a problem to do with profitability. I am able to define it as a problem to do with staff. I'm able to define it as a problem to do with processes. And I'm able to define and to identify and quantify what that impact is to the business. So that's the first, I think, of the techniques, which is really around understanding what your problem is. The second one is about being able to map the influences within the organization. It is very interesting. Organizations, when it comes to influence, have different role players. In an organization, you will find that there are certain people that are decision makers. They have the power to make a decision. They can decide what does not go. You might find that that decision maker is heavily influenced by somebody who is not a decision maker. I will give you an example. We were consulting to a construction company once, and I was dealing with the head of sales. It turned out to be that within the organization, there was a gentleman who had been in the business for about 30 years. This gentleman was not the head of sales. He was in another department that worked with sales. But because of his experience and his knowledge of the business, the head of sales, who was the direct client, relied very heavily on the perspective of this gentleman. Now, without understanding that relationship and without understanding that this individual had influence, even though they didn't have positional power, there were certain choices and there were certain ideas that were sold which were getting kicked back and which the client was not accepting because of this individual. And so being able to map the influences and being able to understand that there was somebody with this type of influence who also had to be sold to was critical to actually being successful in delivering the sale. And so getting buy-in from those who are influencers within the organization, within your client organization, is critical. Very often in most organizations, depending on the size, you might find that there is a board. And every decision that is above a certain amount of money, above a certain level, might have to go to the board. And while you might be talking to the CEO of a company, or you might be talking to somebody who's quite senior and who has positional power, there's still a group that has veto power over that person's decision. And so understanding that influencer map is critical. In any organization, once you then start selling your ideas to the influencers, it is important to then identify who are cheerleaders and who are gatekeepers. Cheerleaders are very often the people who buy into your idea really quickly. They like your idea, they want to see it implemented, and you don't have to do a lot of selling to them as a consultant. The gatekeepers are the skeptics. They're the ones who are not so sure, don't know if it's going to work, and every organization has a fair amount of both of them. And it's important as a consultant when selling to be able to differentiate between the two. Once you start to understand those two, you then need to be able to start building coalitions. Coalitions are a term that we often hear when it comes to politics, but it's very interesting that in business, in organization, in clients, coalitions are actually a very real thing. And the art of building coalitions is about building enough cheerleaders and bringing gatekeepers over to the side of cheerleaders so that you're able to direct the direction in which the influence is going, and you are able to get your ideas sold in effectively. A third technique is around communicating value. What's very important for consultants to understand is that the impact is much greater than the idea. I'm sure that most of you have had that experience if you've been in a consulting space where you have what's called the light bulb moment. You have this idea, and right at that moment, you have a strong sense that it's a very good idea, it can solve the problem. The question to ask yourself is, what is its impact? What value is it going to create within the business? And for you to be able to define that, you need to understand, what is the currency of success? What is it? How do I quantify what success looks like against this idea and against the reality that the business is facing? Sometimes the currency of success is in money. It could be profitability, it could be sales, it could be a cost base. Sometimes it is in people. Sometimes the currency of success is in efficiency. It is important to understand what that currency of success is, what are the measurements that your client is looking for, so that when you communicate your idea and you communicate it in terms of value, you are speaking in the currency of success that they understand. One way to also then make sure that you bring the value to life for them is then to do what's called painting pictures. What's really around painting a scenario. And what this has to do is being able to talk about the value in terms of, what does the future look like? Let's use an example of a company that perhaps is chasing greater profitability. You're able to start to define that the picture that your idea will lead to is one where they're going to be able to double their profitability relative to where they are right now. And with double profitability, it means that they're going to be able to invest in future growth. It might mean that they're going to be able to expand the business. It might mean that they're going to be able to hire more people. But those pictures, that imagery helps them to understand how your idea translates into impact, and ultimately it speaks to the currency of success the way that they understand it. A fourth technique, and perhaps one of the most important techniques, is about building collaboratively. Imagine, if you will, that the idea of selling ideas as a consultant are about starting with a problem and then bringing together building blocks that build from a problem into a solution. What's important is that it is not ultimately up to you independently as a consultant to come up with all the ideas. There is a slide, there is a comment that Rikus made earlier about the fact that you don't have to be the smartest person. You don't have to come up with all the ideas. It is important to be able to build collaboratively with your client, and the most successful consultants actually are able to come up with ideas together with their clients. There's a movie that came out quite some years ago. It was called Inception. Leonardo DiCaprio was one of the main actors, and the concept of Inception was that you could impart ideas into somebody's subconscious as though the idea ultimately came from them. This is a skill. As much as that movie was a work of fiction, and I don't believe that anyone has actually been able to get into somebody's mind to create Inception, as a consultant that sells ideas, it is a skill to have, to be able to lead your client to a point where their ideas are coming from them, even though you may have already thought about the idea. It is a very, very powerful tool to use because they start to believe that this idea has come from their understanding of the business. This idea has come from their experience in the business. All you did was lead them to the idea, and potentially you didn't even have to say it directly, you just led them there. Brainstorming is one of the key ways of being able to do that in an organization. And we will talk a bit about brainstorming when we get into the toolkit that we will speak about later. Effectively, if you think about it, I'm sure everyone has heard the phrase, a phrase that has to do with leading horses to water. But effectively, the art of building collaboratively is just that. It's about taking your client and leading them to what they need. And your role is about being able to put ideas on the table. So that it is not that you are not going to do anything. You are going to put ideas on the table, but together with your client or your customer, you are going to generate new ideas and build on top of the initial ideas until you get to the winning idea that we spoke about initially. And this fourth technique has proved to be really, really, really useful in making sure that you keep your client with you as you go along the way as a consultant. They don't get lost, they feel part of the process. And at the end, when they're buying the idea from you, they feel like it is something that has come from within the organization as much as you have been an external influence that has led them there. And so now I'm going to talk about a toolkit that would be very useful in generating what I call sellable ideas. Ideas, obviously ideas that sell, ideas that stick, ideas that your clients and your customers will buy from you as a consultant. And to do that, we're going to talk through what's called an ideal problem-solving framework. Effectively, if you understand that an idea usually requires a problem, which is the starting point, being able to solve problems and having a framework or a roadmap that you use to solve problems then helps you generate the ideas, the building blocks that you need to get to a solution, to get to the winning idea at the end of the day. The ideal problem-solving framework effectively has five broad steps. The first step is about identifying. The second is about defining. The third step is about exploring. The fourth is about taking action. The fifth is about learning. And what's really nice about it is that it is iterative. And so after you have learned the lessons, you go back again to identify, to see whether the problem has been solved, whether a new problem has been created, and you're able to go through the entire process again. And we will go through every step of this to be able to understand how to use this framework and how to use the tools that are within the framework to help you be able to generate sellable ideas. So the first step is about identifying the problem. And identifying the problem is about gathering information, understanding what's this problem about. There is a technique which is called 5W1H, which is about asking a series of questions related to the problem so that you can get more information about it. So take any problem, no matter what the problem might be. There are a couple of questions that you can apply, and obviously the questions change depending on the context. So what happened? What was the issue? Who did it happen to? Who was involved in this problem? When did it happen? Was it during the day? Was it at night? Was it at noon? Was it within specific hours? Where did it happen? What is the location? Was it at a certain point within a construction or a manufacturing line? Was it on the road? Was it in the office? Was it in the storeroom? Why did it happen? What caused it? And how did it happen? These set of questions or questions that have these words help you to start to understand and identify what exactly is the problem. Very often, we look at a problem and speak about the symptom. So I'll use the toothpaste conveyor or packaging line example that Rikus used. The problem was we are selling or we are shipping empty boxes of toothpaste. That was the problem. That definitely was a problem because you are effectively wasting money. But by asking this series of questions, the organization, which I do believe was Unilever actually, because I did hear that story when I worked for Unilever so many years ago. The questions would help to identify what the problem was. So what happened? We're shipping empty boxes of toothpaste. Who did it happen to? Well, it's on this specific line, or the operators of this specific line seem to be the ones that continue to ship or pack empty boxes of toothpaste. When does it happen? No, it happens all the time. Where? It's on that specific line. Why? And you can see how this set of questions starts to help you gather more detailed information about what's happening. As I said earlier, the context matters. So sometimes you might not need a specific element. There might be no who about it. There might be no why. But what's important is, depending on the context, you apply the tool and you are able to ask yourself the questions. The second is then about defining the problem. And to do that, there is a tool which is simply defined as a fishbone diagram. And it's defined such because if you look at the image on the right, it looks like the body of a fish with the skeletons and the bones showing. But effectively, what this is called root cause analysis. And what you're doing here is that you're starting to delve a little deeper into what exactly is the problem. What is it that led to the problem? What are the different elements that could have caused the problem that we saw? So was it the equipment that failed? Was it a process that failed? Was it the people that failed? Was there a problem with the materials? Is something wrong with the environment? Was it the way that it was being managed? Effectively, a root cause analysis is about drilling into the question why. Some of you may have heard that phrase, ask why. When doing root cause analysis, you ask why over and over and over and over again. Why did it happen? Why did that person do that? Why did that process turn out that way? Why did that box end up in a box being packaged and on the way to a pharmacy, even though it was empty? This helps you to start to link effectively the problem and break it down to an nth degree to see what actually has caused it, and what exactly is at the core of the problem. Very often, the problems that you're solving for which you are selling, you're looking for ideas about, if you do not get down to the root cause, your ideas are what can be defined as shallow. In other words, the ideas don't solve the actual problem, they solve the symptom of the problem. And what a root cause analysis does is that it makes sure that you get down to exactly what is it that you need to solve and what you need to start to generate ideas for to get to a solution. The next step in the ideal framework is the E, which is the exploring of the solutions. Now, this is where you start to come out of the process of understanding, where you start to come out of delving into the root of what the problem is, and you actually start generating ideas. There are so many ideas, there are so many things that one could come up with in trying to solve a problem. If you look at the image on the right, in reality, having been in some of these problem solving or idea generation sessions, it is so easy. You could get to 100 ideas in a sitting with your clients, with your colleagues as a consultant. And this is where the creativity starts. As Rikus said earlier, sometimes the ideas might not be the best. The first ones usually aren't. But what happens is that as the ideas build on each other, you start to get better and better and better ideas and start to move towards a winning idea or final solution. One of the best ways of exploring solutions is something called brainstorming. Most of us would have been experienced or had exposure to brainstorming, and we brainstorm all the time in our day-to-day lives. How do we do this quicker? How do I get there much sooner? How do I fix this problem that's happening at home? We're always coming up with ideas about how to do things, how to do them better, how to fix a problem that we see. And so as a consultant, the art of brainstorming is also something that you then do a lot of when you're in this step of problem solving. And there are a couple of brainstorming techniques which we will list a bit later in a couple of slides from now. Very important when you are exploring solutions is to collaborate with your client. As a consultant, you have to take them along the way. If you want to be able to get your idea sold, the art of selling as a consultant is not to go into a room, come up with a solution, do it all by yourself, and then come and sell the solution to them. You have to walk the journey with them. You have to facilitate their transition. They have to have walked the journey of getting to the solution, of getting to the winning idea with you. Sometimes you do need to go into the back room. Sometimes you do need to go and do research. You do need to take an idea and investigate the idea at some level of depth. But when you come across to your client and to your customer, you have to walk them along the journey so that they don't get lost, and so that ultimately the buy into your idea is a lot easier. So specifically going into brainstorming techniques, I've listed a few techniques over here. Rikus did allude to one of them, which was around mind mapping. Each of them has a lot of detail around it about how you do it, and we won't be able to go into all of that detail in today's webinar. But effectively, all these techniques basically give you a framework and a way to work with your client or your customer to walk towards solutions and to walk towards ideas that effectively will be the winning solution for the problem that they have. Some of them you might be familiar with, so the idea of storyboarding, the idea of telling stories about the desired end state and using that to then come up with ideas that build backwards into the final solution that they accept. Mind mapping is another one. Scamper is another one. A SWOT analysis is one that many people are very familiar with, and some of you might be as well. So taking an idea and talking through its strengths, its weaknesses, the opportunities that it creates, and the threats that it exposes the business or your client to. Asking the what if question, which can also be defined as wishing. And this is where effectively with your client, you start to define what you believe the end state might look like. What are the wishes of your client and your client organization, and you are able to then again work backwards. And the last one that I've put on the list there is about questioning assumptions. And so the different ideas are effectively sets of assumptions that you are then able to drill into and question each one to get closer and closer to that winning idea. What's very important, and in closing, is to understand that it is the execution of an idea, of the idea that you sell, that is the sale. This quote from Michael Dell is one that is very important for all consultants to keep in mind. The ideas themselves are a commodity. Anybody can come up with ideas. Of course, as consultants, you come with a specific set of skills. You come with a specific competency. You might have studied it. You might have experience within a particular field. But the truth is, the ideas that you come up with, given your context, given your experience, given your education, those ideas are effectively commodity. There are lots of people who can come up with the ideas. The ability to get them executed is the sale. And until an idea has been executed, until your client, your customer has bought your idea as a consultant and has moved towards execution and implementation, the sale is not complete. One of the experiences that I had as a consultant, which I never understood, was selling without seeing the idea sold, executed by the client. It never made sense. And the truth is, a lot of consultants do sell ideas that the client might never execute. What is critical is to understand, if the idea is not executed, what is the reason for that? Perhaps there are other internal dynamics at play. Perhaps by the time you finished selling the ideas, the context had changed, something different had happened, there were other business priorities. What is important is to understand what those are and to make sure that your idea has not been put on a shelf because it actually does not solve the problem, because it's not effective, because it means that you're not being effective and efficient as a consultant. The last two steps of the ideal framework, which are around actioning and learning, talk specifically to that execution. They talk specifically to being able to take the winning idea, put it into practice, execute it, see how it has worked, and then come back around, see that it has solved the problem, and if it has not, be able to optimize what that issue is. So thank you for listening to this webinar. Thank you for your time. My business is called Consumatech Solutions. We do quite a number of things for clients, large and small. We help them with generating ideas, whether it be an entrepreneur, whether it be an existing business that's already operating. We help them think through new ideas about how to operate within the markets that they're in. We have a particular focus on technology and innovation. So how do businesses and how do entrepreneurs or how do existing businesses use technology to win within their marketplaces? We provide consulting services around strategy and advisory. We help businesses define new models and optimize their existing models. And personally, I spend quite a bit of time coaching and mentoring small businesses, startups, young entrepreneurs, and students that are not yet entrepreneurs, but have specific skills that they believe can turn into businesses or enterprises for them in the future. My contact details are on the slide. I'm sure that Christine will also share contacts with you if need be. Again, thank you for your time. Looking forward to your questions in the next session. Over to you, Christine.
Thank you so much, Toye. That was very powerful. And when I look at both of your presentations, I don't know whether to clap. I don't know. I'm sure everybody feels the same way. It's just, you've both laid out complex ideas in such a relatable manner. And what I really loved was your very last slide, Toye, if you could just go back to that, where you were emphasizing the importance of executing, because I mean, otherwise, why are you here? You know, we have all of these ideas, but how do you execute? And also the root cause analysis. I think that's a place, an area where we all need a lot of training. And this diagram that you have showed us clearly demonstrates how you go to the root of the problem and understand the impact. So thank you so much for that, Toye. I'd like us to get to the questions, but before we get to the questions, everybody, I just have a quick poll that I would like you to take. Apologies to those of us watching from Facebook. You cannot see the poll, but I'll definitely be in touch with you. And yes, so if everybody could just answer this quick Q&A. It's basically about feedback. Can everybody see the poll? Please let me know in the chats if you can see the poll on the screen. Okay, I'll just leave it open for a few more seconds. Okay, so I will end the poll now. Thank you so much for your responses. And let's get to the question. So I'm going to start off with what's in the chats. And Rikus and Toye, this is a joint Q&A. So, okay. So Peter asks, when is the right time to quit your job and go on your own and do business? I believe we were all born to be great and we can do better doing our own thing, but we are afraid. So you can both answer. Perhaps you can start, Rikus.
Okay, that's a great question. It's a difficult question. I think it's different for different people, and I think it depends on in which stage of the life cycle your next business or your idea is. But like I said, and it also depends on how comfortable the individual is with the risk. So when I went on my own a couple of years ago, I read the book by Robert Kiyosaki, When to Quit Your Job. Unfortunately, my bookshelf is not close by. Otherwise, I could have shown it to you, because I felt that same anxiousness, I think, that you are experiencing. So, and instead of giving you, I think I'll give you a possible answer, or I'll tell you what I did. It's different for everybody. So I wasn't comfortable with I mean, as you grow older and I have 3 children, and as your responsibilities gets more, you're less tolerant of risk. So if you're 25 and you have your whole life in front of you and you don't have much responsibilities, my advice would be quit and go big time and just run with it. But it depends on the kind of person you are. So how I approached it was to say that, yeah, I love what I do, and I've come to accept that I'm not the biggest entrepreneur in the world. You know, I'm not the Richard Branson of this world, but I do like I'm comfortable with a little bit of risk. So I sort of I keep my one foot in a corporate environment where I get exposure to best practices and what's happening in the corporate environment. And then, okay, my career is I can do my work outside of office. So I write my stuff in the evenings, and I do my consulting work on the weekends or whatever. I mean, you have to be fair to your work and to yourself if you go that route. So I chose a less risky approach to keep one foot in the corporate environment. And once my other gigs start sort of having a life of their own, then I'll make the decision. So yeah, it depends on those factors. So I would to end off, I would say, look at the potential of your idea. Try to determine how long it will take, if it's successful, to sustain your current income and things. And then you have to have some traction before you just quit your job. I mean, if you win the lotto and you have the means to do it, by all means, like I say, it's different for different situations. So evaluate those things and then make a decision. And like I said, don't always look at it as either or. Sometimes it can be an and. Sometimes you can have a job and you can start a business on the side and hustle on the side and make it working. So don't see it as a or, the one or the other. It can be an and as well. I hope that helps. Like I said, it's a difficult question. It depends on everybody's specific circumstances.
Thank you, Rikus. Toye, would you like to add to that?
Yes, definitely. So Rikus is perfectly correct. I actually have an answer, and the honest truth is I don't believe there's an ideal time to quit your job. There's no perfect timing for it. The truth is that it's about your level of preparation to be on your own, and your assessment of that level of, or your assessment of your level of preparation, your honest assessment is actually what matters. There's a couple of things that you can consider to help you determine your level of preparation. So your age definitely matters. If you're younger, you do have sort of more time, you do have more runway. But if you're older and you have responsibilities, that is something that you need to think about. How much runway do you have? How much time do you have to be able to figure it out before you run out of resources? That's another thing for you to assess. How complex is your idea? If you are going out to start a fish and chip shop, perhaps it won't take you too long. You've been able to understand and define your market, so it won't take you too long to be able to get it going. But if you're going out and you're going to launch another mobile phone, or you're going to, build a car, that might take you a lot longer. And so, how complex is what it is that you want to do? And then what can you do to minimize your risk and potentially extend your runway? Lastly, do you have enough experience? So, a lot of young people say, I want to go out and I want to get into my own business. And that's great. I, as an entrepreneur, I encourage entrepreneurship, but you have to ask the question, yes, while you might have time, do you have the experience? Are you going to be able to go out and sell this product to your customer audience and they will take you seriously? They will see you as authentic. Or do you need to spend some more time gaining experience, educating yourself, staying in the workplace so that you're better equipped? The truth is, everyone's scenario is different. But if you think about all those factors, it leads you to at least get a better understanding of whether you should or you shouldn't be considering doing that. Honestly, safest, if someone asked for a specific, I think Rikus's approach is what I have advised many entrepreneurs. So keep your day job, figure out how you start to build your business in your spare time, figure out how you start to sell to at least a customer, and then a second customer, and a third customer before you make the leap. Going from 0 to 1 is not as easy as people think it is, not because they're not capable, because there's so much that you need to learn. And yeah, those are my thoughts.
Thank you so much for that. I hope that answers you, Peter. Fairness is asking, will a recording of this be emailed to us? It'll be available on our Facebook page, Secure the Bag Africa, and it will stay there. So feel free to keep checking it out. Daniel is asking, my question is, as a consultant, how do you tell a customer their idea is bad, and yet they're so passionate about it? Won't telling them the truth make you join their list of negative people, or should I accept their payment and confirm what I knew all along? You can start with that one, Rikus.
Okay, so that is a great question. Also a difficult one, but usually the great questions are the difficult ones. So, okay, so let me first give you a perspective from in the corporate environment that I live. So I go and advocate every day to people, share ideas, sell ideas, make your ideas work, ideas. And then what happens when I was still wet behind the ears when this journey started, and then people come to me and they say, Rikus, yes, I shared this idea with a manager and nothing happened, and now I'm not bothering anymore. I just leave it. And then I start to realize there's different reasons why this happens. Sometimes it's the organizational culture. Sometimes the idea just is not good. And then I started to tweak my message. So I started to tell people, if you like to see your ideas work, and if you have lots of ideas and you want to get value from ideas and you want to make a difference with your ideas, you have to have the maturity to accept when somebody does not like your idea, and then maybe it's not a good idea, and then move on to the next idea or get a better idea that works. And you have to keep on pushing until you find the winner. Meaning, if you want to live in this world, you have to have the maturity to sometimes say, okay, it didn't work, but you know what, the next one will. My next idea is going to be even better. Okay, this idea didn't work because of this reason, so I'm going to change that etc. So you have to, part of being an entrepreneur, being the ideas person in your work, is to accept you get it wrong sometimes. The practical answer, and I'm sure Toye will give you a more practical answer than I do, because I think he's much more involved in that world. But for me, I would say the practical answer would be that you have to use, first, I would say, spread this message of, you know, even the great innovators get it wrong sometimes. Sometimes the idea just isn't good, but in a very obviously diplomatic manner. And then the second thing is I would do is to show that use data and I don't want to use the word research, but use data and back up your advice with some data and some evidence. That's the word I'm looking for. So if it's a bad idea, show them, don't just say it's a bad idea. Give them a reason, or show them a statistic that, you know what, a similar idea was tried by this organization, and this is what happened. It was a complete failure because of A, B, and C. That would be my advice, because people, people fall in love with the ideas. It happens. I do it myself. But the only way you can change that is with proper evidence and with good data to show why this probably won't work or whatever. Yeah, that's the best I can give you. I think Toye should chip in as well. I have the feeling he's definitely been in situations like this before.
Thanks, Rikus.
So I laugh because as a junior consultant, I did tell a client once that, no, that's a bad idea. And I just said it. The truth is, as a consultant, you have to develop a emotional maturity. And you also have to develop empathy. The other thing is that you have to learn to be objective and diagnostically objective. And Rikus then hit it on the nail when he said, you have to walk them along the journey. The fact that you know it's a bad idea is because you've actually done some iteration on the idea in your head. You've actually thought about it, and you've thought certain stages about it, and you have come to a conclusion, but that has happened in your own head. And as a good consultant, you have to be able to walk your customer on that journey. You have to be able to hold their hand and say, right, let's go through the tools. Some of the tools that I discussed are the Fishbone, very good one, where you say, all right, let's understand the root cause, and then let's apply this to see whether it changes what that root cause is. Another one is the SWOT analysis. So let's look at this idea objectively, put it on a SWOT, what are its strengths, what are its weaknesses. You have to help them get to that point themselves. As a consultant, if you are there and you don't take them there, you effectively don't win. I must say, do not take a client's money without making sure you have sold them a solution that they have bought into. What you've done is you very often impact your own credibility as a consultant because they effectively feel that you're inauthentic. You have not delivered the solution. Yes, you've gone with what they said, but ultimately, when you allow them to go with it, their sense is that they've bought the idea from you. It is a very important gray area not to fall into as a consultant.
Thank you so much for that, Toye, especially highlighting the importance of collaborating so that you are walking them through the journey. If it's a bad idea, why is it a bad idea? Because if you sit on it and you don't say anything, it reflects badly on you. We are running out of time. I'm going to take a few, just maybe 2 more questions and a comment here from Fafa. She says, thank you to both panelists for such detailed and informative presentations. What I appreciate most is that both speakers have spoken about business, not just from the entrepreneur's perspective, but in such a way that someone who prefers the structure and lower risk afforded by being in an organization can figure out how to improve their contribution or work in the organization. That is very true. Everything that we've heard of today, or everything that has been presented, applies to you as an individual and as a business owner. Daniel says, thank you, Toye. Yes, it was good to, okay, a message just came in, sorry. Yes, it's good to let the customer be a part of the solution for their buy-in. I've been making a mistake of being the smartest person in the room and coming up with all the solutions. Thanks for correcting me on that. Let me just take one more. Okay, so Caroline, I think, says, please advise how to be an entrepreneur in the insurance space. Yes, she's in the insurance industry. How can she be an entrepreneur?
Okay, Christine, I'll quickly bet that I don't there's not it's very a wide question. I don't have all the detail. So my advice would be find the problem to solve. What is in the insurance space? Go and do a quick desktop search on what are the key issues now in the insurance industry. What are the trends? Especially the whole world have changed now, and not sometimes, but change brings opportunity as well. So I'm not too I don't know the insurance space that well. I'm a client from insurance, so I would say the opportunities would probably be online. You can maybe not go physically and do a check or assessment on a product, do an online assessment of a vehicle after an accident or things like that. Off the cuff, but find the problem to solve. Find what is changing in the insurance space. Look at the trends now, and then look at where the biggest pains and frustrations are, and start asking those questions. It's a very wide answer, but I don't have all the detail of your specific environment.
Right. Thank you so much, Rikus. Toye, would you like to add to that?
Sure. So I think as an entrepreneur, I think there's a general principle which I encourage for intrapreneurs, is that if you want to be a good entrepreneur, the first thing you have to focus on is understanding the bigger picture in your business. You know, the difference between an entrepreneur and a normal employee is that an entrepreneur actually cares about more than just their department. So if you're in finance, you actually care about what's happening in marketing, what's happening in sales. You care about what's happening, you know, on the front line. You care about what's happening in policy, you know, whatever it might be. And so that's the first thing. If you want to be a good entrepreneur, whether you're in insurance or anything else, you need to care about the bigger picture. Once you care about that bigger picture, you're able to start to understand what the pain points of your business are. And that is where you are then able to start thinking about ideas as to how to solve those pain points. You might be in finance, and the problem is that you are losing market share. You know, once you understand that, you can start to think about solutions. Once you have those solutions, obviously, you then use some of the tools we've spoken about. How do you sell them into the business? Because now you are selling them as though you're selling to a client. So how do you sell it to the right people? How do you get buy-in? You know, how do you get down to what the root cause might be? Obviously, you might need to work with other people. So as an entrepreneur, you have to work with other departments and multi-purpose teams to be able to achieve your objective. But I guess I'm trying to give this answer in a general way for everyone. But in insurance specifically, you need to get down to what is the bigger picture, what are the pain points, and then start to figure out how you generate ideas working with multi-purpose teams to get to the answer. Perhaps if there was something specific, I could give you a more specific answer, but I think that's the route that's the advice I would give.
Thanks for that, Toye. I hope that answers you, Caroline. It was a broad question, and I think our speakers have answered as best they could. It's really about identifying the pain. And also, when we look at what entrepreneurship is, as Toye has explained to us, you're interested in all the various business functions. I'm taking the very last two questions. Fanis is asking, is Namibia and South Africa open for sales funnel automation, or is old school cold calling from the phone still the best for our countries?
Okay, Christine, I'll jump in first again as a Namibian. the thing of Namibia is we have a very small population. We're like 2.3 million people. I think South Africa has 50+ million people. So it's different environments. It's a good question. I personally feel that it depends on the environment you work. That's no real consultant answer, but I also want to say that every single business is now ready for sales funnel automation. I was thinking of examples now when I heard the question. I mean, even a dentist can put up a website and videos of how he's satisfied his clients are. So you have to people also, they move away from cold calling. I mean, if I look at myself, if I have to make a call to somebody to arrange something, whatever, these days I'll first send a text. I'll send a WhatsApp to say, listen, this is story, blah, blah, and maybe we can resolve it quickly that way. So people are used to doing it digital, electronically. Good face-to-face conversation will never be replaced, but cold calling is different. I mean, cold calling, yes, I was an ERP consultant in my IT days, and I did a lot of cold calling, and yes, it's really not a I know very few people who really like cold calling. So so I would say, if cold calling works, if you get the results, by all means, and if you have the stomach for it, but it doesn't matter if you're in Namibia, South Africa. I mean, it also depends obviously on the product and the service you're offering, but sales funnel automation, I mean, if you write a book, you can sell it from Afghanistan to Iceland on the internet. So by all means, depending on the services and you provide, you have to do sales funnel automation as soon as possible, especially now with the times we're living in now and everything that's happened, where so many things are moving digital in any case. So I would stick my neck out and say that cold calling is I think is on its way out.
Thank you, Rikus. Toye?
Yeah, I think I broadly agree with Rikus, definitely. I do think that in South Africa, you need to mix it up a bit. You have a bigger economy, depending on the industry that you're trying to talk into. Sometimes you have to make those calls in certain industries, but I think the answer is to mix it up a bit. I think that sales funnel automation is definitely, like Rikus said, I think it's on the increase. I think that where the world is going, we have to start adopting a lot of this technology. In South Africa, I think is definitely ready for it. But in certain industries, your SMMEs, your mid-sized companies, that conversation is becoming more and more important. I think the thing with cold calling is that the day of an inexperienced call center agent picking up the phone and calling you, who cannot have a conversation, an expert level conversation, I think those days are kind of sunsetting, because people do want to give their attention to conversations that have meaning and are not just random shots in the dark. So I'd say in South Africa, mix it up a bit. The sales funnel automation is definitely growing, but there is still a space for cold calling depending on the industry you are speaking to.
Thank you, Toye. And the very last question comes from Augustinus, who's asking, given the fact that entrepreneurship is a new norm in our society, there is not a strong financial background, no strong support. How can one emerge out of the odds to execute ideas that are sellable?
Okay, Christina, I'll have the first stab again. So that's also a very good question, and I think it's these days it's more relevant than ever. So part of being an entrepreneur is getting funding. It's many people view it as the most difficult part. So I've gone down that route as well, and it is difficult economic times now, but yes, there are so many options, and I think whether you go to the bank, whether you get an angel investor, whether you borrow money from a family member or a friend, whether you bootstrap when you start up. There's so many ways of getting funding these days, and part of the entrepreneurial journey is to figure that out and to explore all avenues. Meaning, if the bank shuts the door in your face, try the next option. So then if your family member says no, try the next option. And then also, like I said, because funding is such a big issue, as I explained in my presentation, don't go all out. First test to set up a website and to do a quick mock-up of a product and write a bit of content. That doesn't cost an arm and a leg. So you can say first test that idea, and I mean, even if you have to take a part-time job or use some of your savings or whatever, just to do that. Don't go all in at first. So once you've proven the demand, maybe the access to funding will also be easier. If you can show a possible investor or the bank or the family member or whatever. Like I advertised my product on this website, and 500 people said they liked it, and I have an order for the first 100 products already. Maybe that's proven that maybe it proves that that's a sellable concept, and then you maybe get easier access to funding. But yeah, it's a difficult one for entrepreneurs, and that's part of the journey. So don't just look at a bank getting money. Look at all the options that's out there. Good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rikus. Toye, would you like to close off with an answer to that comment from Augustina?
Sure. So I think number one, start small. I agree. Getting financial support is not easy. Getting entrepreneurial support is not easy, especially in the African context. I think start small. Focus on the journey to customer acquisition. I strongly believe in this thing of going from 0 to 1. You often find that going from 0 to 1, should not cost you as much. But if you can get to 1, you can get to 2. The other thing is be open to multiple sources of income. If I use my example in my entrepreneurial journey, I at some points was earning from 4 or 5 different sources of income, so as to keep my core entrepreneurial goal and vision alive, because there was no access to funding, and it took time, and it took longer than I would have wanted it to. But in the end, as I started to gain some traction, I was able to have a business that did not have debt and did not, was not laden with loans or anything else that I had taken. So yes, it might take you some time, but the lessons you learn and where you get to is usually actually quite helpful. But I think the core thing is be about customer acquisition. Funding and a lot of the support things that we look for might seem like they get us there quicker, but the journey to customer acquisition actually allows you to grow deeper roots. And oddly enough, as you start to acquire customers, you start to find that your funding might actually start to come from customers who are buying your products or services, versus actually going out to a bank or to an angel investor or whoever it might be to get money into your business.
Thank you so much for that, Rikus and Toye. I'm just going to go quickly through our poll results. I see a lot of you, or let me say 88% of you, enjoyed the session. 1 or 2 wished it was longer. Most people felt that the length was perfect. And 75% of you actually said, and this is of the people who actually voted, that you would love to see the presenters again at a more advanced level. How do you feel about your ideas now? 38% of you said you'd like more coaching in this area. 88% said you feel ready to explore your ideas and bring them to life, which is great. And a few of you said that you still lack confidence in your ideas, which is okay. And is consulting a field you would like to enter? And 63% of you said you'd love to, also bearing in mind that these were multiple choice questions. 25% again said you need more coaching in this area, 38% said you're not confident about your problem solving ability, and 50% said you are ready to start selling your ideas. And the last question is, would you attend a short online course on turning your ideas into action and selling your ideas as a consultant? 75% said yes, and 25% said maybe. I'm sure that we would love to host Rikus and Toye again. We'd like to say bye, Rikus and Toye, so please switch on your videos. You've both been amazing, and you are testament to the brains that we have on this continent. And I would like to thank you so much for just giving this your all, because this was so much practical information that actually could have been paid for or should have been paid for. So thank you for contributing to the African body of knowledge. We really appreciate this so much. For our attendees in the Zoom room, those who couldn't make it into the Zoom room, those who are on Facebook, thank you so much for joining us. This session will be available online, so you can access it anytime. For those of you who will be with me again in 2 hours, I'm looking forward to spending more time with you. We'll be discussing how to develop a wireless mindset and move your business online. So once again, Rikus, would you like to say anything to close, and Toye?
Thank you, Christine. Firstly, to you for organizing this. You know, I get energized from people coming up with ideas and changing the world with their ideas. So for me to talk about these things, I really enjoy it. So thanks for the opportunity. And then to all the participants, you know, just keep going. I mean, it's through people like you who progress and who grow their skills by listening to these kind of things that the world changes. And I mean, now more than ever, the world needs to pull together to figure out a lot of things, and it's people like you who makes the difference. So thank you very much. And then Toye, I just want to say for the record, I think you gave some very good advice there, some very good answers, which I really appreciated. So well done, and thanks for sharing the session with me, man.
Thanks, Rikus.
Thank you. So I think to the audience, I think this has been amazing. I have a real passion for this continent. I firmly believe that Africa's potential, you know, if realized within its people and its resources, I really believe that we will be unstoppable. And what I love about what you're doing, Christine, is that you are creating, or you've created a platform where we're able to actually start to share ideas and connect our experiences and our knowledge, and be able to share that across, you know, with people from different countries. I think that's really amazing. I think I hope that each and every one of you will realize that no matter what idea you have, it has a purpose. It could be the idea that links to another idea that solves a real problem, whether for businesses, whether for communities, whether for individuals. And so what's the most important thing is to put your idea out there. You have to put it out there. If you don't, its purpose is completely lost. And if there's any one thing I want you to take away, is that you must put your idea out there. Put it to a friend, put it to a relative, to a spouse, but put it out there and let something or someone build on it. Rikus, thank you so much. I have a very strong feeling that I am going to be talking to you about innovation relatively soon. It's been amazing, I think, sharing this platform with you, and I look forward to us talking further over the next few weeks.
Cool, thanks, Toye.
And thank you, Christine.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and have a good day.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.